What if the war on drugs was never about drugs? What if it was the final modern battle in a silent 5,000-year-old war? A war not on a plant, but on a state of being. A war on consciousness itself. What if I told you that the key to unlocking humanity's most profound spiritual and intellectual potential has been systematically hidden, demonized, and outlawed, not to protect you, but to control you? And what if that key was not a synthetic chemical cooked up in a lab, but something that grows from the earth, a humble plant that ancient civilizations revered as a direct line to the divine?
Welcome to Secrets of the Ancients, where ancient mysteries awaken.
These profound words were spoken by the great astronomer and philosopher, Carl Sagan. He understood a fundamental truth that our ancestors knew intimately. The universe is not something external to be observed, but a reality to be experienced. They believed that our minds were not cages of bone and flesh, but receivers, capable of tuning into frequencies far beyond the mundane static of everyday life. And for millennia, they used a very specific set of tools to fine-tune that receiver. Today, we embark on a journey to rediscover this lost knowledge. We will peel back the layers of propaganda, fear, and misunderstanding to uncover the truth about one of humanity's oldest and most controversial spiritual allies, cannabis. This is not the story you've heard from politicians or sensationalist news reports. This is a story of gods and shamans, of priests and philosophers, of secret CIA experiments and the forgotten wisdom encoded in our most sacred texts. We will travel from the snow-swept plains of ancient Siberia to the sun-drenched temples of the Nile, from the mystical peaks of the Himalayas to the locked vaults of Cold War intelligence agencies. We will ask the difficult questions. Why does your brain have a complex network of receptors, the endocannabinoid system, that is perfectly designed to interact with the compounds in this one specific plant? No other substance, not alcohol, not caffeine, not nicotine, has such a bespoke biological lock-and key system waiting in our neurology. Is it a mere evolutionary coincidence? Or is it, as the ancients believed, evidence of a co-evolutionary partnership between our species and this botanical teacher? This is a masterclass in forbidden history. So, prepare to have your reality questioned. Because by the end of this journey, you will understand that the secret of the ancients was not about getting high. It was about seeing beyond. Our story begins over 4,000 years ago in the Indus Valley, where one of the world's most sophisticated spiritual traditions was taking root. The people of this era composed a collection of hymns, mantras, and philosophical treatises known as the Vedas. These are not just religious texts. They are a grand, sprawling library of the human spirit, and within their ancient verses, we find our first significant clue. The Atharvaveda, one of the four main Vedas, speaks of a sacred plant, one of the 5 sacred plants of India. It calls it Banga, a word that translates to the conqueror or the liberator. But what was it liberating people from? Not from foreign armies or political oppression. The Vedas are clear. Banga was a conqueror of suffering and anxiety. This is a concept of immense philosophical weight. The Vedic sages, much like the later Buddhist and Jain traditions that would spring from this same soil, saw ordinary human existence as being entangled in a state of dukkha, a term often translated as suffering, but which more accurately means a pervasive sense of dissatisfaction, a fundamental dis-ease with the nature of transient reality. Their entire spiritual project was aimed at transcending this state, and they identified Banga as a powerful ally in this quest. For centuries, Western scholars debated the identity of another mysterious Vedic substance, Soma. The Rigveda dedicates an entire book to hymns praising Soma, a divine plant and the intoxicating drink made from it. It was described as a bringer of immortality, a gateway to the realm of the gods, and a source of ecstatic vision. The identity of the original Soma plant has been lost to time, becoming one of history's greatest botanical mysteries. Scholars have proposed everything from mushrooms like Amanita muscaria to Syrian rue. However, many ethnobotanists and historians, such as the respected Chris Bennett, argue compellingly that cannabis, or banga, was at the very least a primary ingredient or a later substitute for the legendary Soma. The descriptions of Soma's effects, heightened senses, profound insight, a feeling of connection to the cosmos, and the dissolution of fear, are remarkably consistent with the spiritual effects described by advanced psychonauts using cannabis with intention. This tradition is not a fossilized relic of the past. It is alive today. In holy cities like Varanasi, during festivals like Mahashivaratri, holy men known as sadhus still prepare and consume bhang, not as a recreational party drug, but as a sacrament. They believe it allows them to dissolve their individual ego, to quiet the relentless chatter of the mind, and to connect with the consciousness of the god Shiva, the Lord of transformation, the destroyer of illusion. For them, each sip is a prayer, a participation in the cosmic dance of creation and destruction. They are not escaping reality. They believe they are accessing a deeper layer of it. This ancient, unbroken tradition now finds itself in a direct clash with the forces of modern global politics. The global war on drugs, largely driven by American policy in the 20th century, led to the 1985 Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act in India. For the first time in millennia, the plant that was once revered as a sacred gift was now, in many forms, illegal. This creates a fascinating and deeply telling paradox. On one hand, you have the government, bound by international treaties and modern legal frameworks, cracking down on cannabis cultivation and distribution. On the other, you have the state-sanctioned, government-licensed bang shops operating legally in several states, catering to the religious needs of millions. This isn't just a legal contradiction. It's a civilizational one. It represents the collision of a modern, secular, Western legal paradigm with an ancient, indigenous, spiritual worldview. The current political climate in India, with its rising tide of Hindu nationalism, further complicates this. Some factions seek to reclaim and celebrate these ancient traditions as a core part of national identity, while others, aiming for a modern image on the global stage, see them as a backward embarrassment. The debate over cannabis in India today is not just about public health or crime. It is a debate about the soul of a nation. It is about whether millennia of spiritual and cultural wisdom can survive the homogenizing pressure of globalization and the legacy of colonial-era moral panics. It is a living, breathing example of the war on consciousness we mentioned at the beginning. The Vedic sages called cannabis the conqueror of suffering. They saw it as a tool to help the mind break free from its self-imposed limitations. Is it possible that the modern world, in its relentless pursuit of control, material wealth, and a narrow definition of productivity, has declared war on this plant precisely because it encourages a different way of being, a way that is less concerned with consuming and competing, and more concerned with connecting and contemplating? Let us now travel west, across the arid sands to the cradle of another of the world's great foundational civilizations, ancient Egypt. Here, amidst the monumental pyramids and the enigmatic gods, we find a new thread in our investigation, one that weaves together wisdom, magic, and a mysterious green messenger. Our guide in this land is the great god Thoth. Depicted as a man with the head of an ibis, Thoth was the divine arbiter, the master of knowledge, the inventor of writing and magic, and the keeper of the records of the gods. He was the divine intellect personified, and according to legend, he was the author of one of the most enigmatic and influential texts in the history of Western esotericism, the Emerald Tablet. While the tablet's true origins are likely more recent, tracing back to Arabic Hermetic texts of the early medieval period, its legend is firmly rooted in the mystique of pharaonic Egypt. The wisdom it contains is attributed to Thoth, or his later Greek equivalent, Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes the thrice great. The tablet's core teaching is distilled into one of the most famous occult maxims ever written: as above, so below. This phrase is a key. It is the foundational principle of all alchemy and esoteric philosophy. It means that the macrocosm, the universe, the cosmos, the divine realm, is a reflection of the microcosm, the human being, the mind, the soul, and vice versa. To understand one is to understand the other. The path to divine knowledge is not to be found by looking outward to the heavens, but by looking inward into the depths of one's own consciousness. So where does cannabis fit into this hermetic equation? The Emerald Tablet itself speaks of a secret art and the glory of the whole world. Later Hermetic and alchemical texts, which expanded upon the tablet's wisdom, are replete with references to botanical secrets and the use of plants to achieve altered states of consciousness, which they called the Great Work. Recent archaeological and ethnobotanical evidence is beginning to connect these dots. While the blue lotus flower is famously depicted in Egyptian art for its psychoactive properties, residue analysis from ancient temples and tombs is revealing something more. A 2022 study in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology confirmed what many had long suspected. The Egyptians were not just using single plants, but creating sophisticated blends. They were masters of synergy. The study found that when cannabis is burned in combination with other sacred incenses used in Egyptian temples, like frankincense and myrrh, the chemical interaction produces unique psychoactive compounds that are not present when cannabis is consumed alone. This is not just getting high. This is a form of ancient neurochemistry. The priests were not just smoking a plant. They were using a precise spiritual technology designed to induce specific states of consciousness, to help them access what they called the Jewat, the underworld, the hidden realm of gods and spirits. The reliefs don't just show priests holding flowers. They depict a highly advanced system of ritual alchemy. The green messenger and the eye of Horus. The hieroglyph for knowledge and wisdom in some contexts shows a flowering plant next to an open eye, the Ujjat, or the eye of Horus. This symbol represents healing, protection, and divine perception. For centuries, Egyptologists assumed this plant was the blue lotus, but new translations and a re-examination of botanical evidence suggest it could, in many cases, represent cannabis, which was known to grow in the region. The five-fingered leaf is a far better match for cannabis than the lotus. If this interpretation is correct, the message is staggering. The ancient Egyptians were explicitly stating that the use of this sacred plant was a direct pathway to opening the eye of Horus, what modern spiritual traditions would call the third eye, the seat of inner vision and intuition. The Emerald Tablet contains another cryptic line: "With great ingenuity you shall separate the earth from the fire, the subtle from the gross, sweetly and with great industry." Alchemically, this refers to the process of distillation, of separating the pure essence from the coarse matter. Spiritually, It's a metaphor for refining one's own consciousness. But could it also be a practical instruction? A warning about dosage? Thoth, the god of wisdom, would have understood what modern science is only now confirming. The dose makes the poison, but it also makes the medicine. Too little cannabis and nothing happens. Too much and the nervous system is overwhelmed, leading to paranoia, confusion, and what shamans call spiritual noise. But the perfect amount, what the Egyptian texts might describe as enough to make the hieroglyphs dance, but not vanish, allows the user to maintain a delicate balance. 1 foot in this world, 1 foot in the duat. It allows for the reception of visions without a complete loss of self. The story of Egyptian alchemy provides a powerful lens through which to view our modern world, particularly our relationship with medicine. The Egyptian priests were, in a sense, the world's first pharmacists, using complex botanical knowledge to interact with the body and mind. Now, fast forward to the 21st century. We live under the dominion of a global pharmaceutical industry worth trillions of dollars. This industry is built on a specific model, isolating single active compounds, patenting them, and marketing them for specific symptoms. There is no room in this model for whole plant medicine, with its complex symphony of hundreds of compounds, cannabinoids, terpenes, flavonoids, all working in synergy, an effect scientists call the entourage effect. Why? Because you cannot patent a plant. You cannot patent a 1,000-year-old tradition. The suppression of cannabis and other natural psychedelics in the 20th century was not just a moral crusade. It was an act of economic protectionism. It cleared the field for a new priesthood, the pharmaceutical corporations, to replace the old one. They offered their own path to conquering suffering, a pill for every ill, a pill for anxiety, a pill for depression, a pill for sleeplessness. This system, while offering undeniable benefits for many acute conditions, has also created a crisis of its own. We are now facing epidemics of opioid addiction, a direct result of patented, single-molecule solutions being pushed as a panacea for pain. We are seeing rising rates of depression and anxiety, even as antidepressant prescriptions skyrocket. Is it possible that by outlawing the shaman's garden, we have locked ourselves into the pharmacist's lab? Have we traded the subtle, holistic wisdom of as above, so below for the gross, reductionist model of a pill for every symptom? The Egyptian model, a technology of consciousness, was designed to produce insight and wholeness. The modern model is often designed to produce manageable symptoms and repeat customers. The story of Thoth's green messenger forces us to ask, in our quest for modern medicine, have we forgotten the very definition of healing? Our journey now takes a sharp, almost unbelievable turn. We leave the ancient world of priests and shamans and enter the paranoid, high-stakes world of 20th century espionage. Because the most shocking, scientifically documented evidence for cannabis's ability to expand perception comes not from a spiritual text, but from the declassified files of the Central Intelligence Agency. The year is 1972. The Cold War is at its peak. The United States and the Soviet Union are locked in a desperate struggle for global supremacy, a struggle fought not just with nuclear weapons and proxy wars, but in the shadowy realm of psychological operations and psychic warfare. The CIA, terrified that the Soviets were making progress in harnessing paranormal abilities for spying, launched a series of highly classified programs to investigate these phenomena themselves. The most famous of these was Project Stargate. The goal of Stargate was to explore, and if possible, weaponize remote viewing, the alleged ability to perceive and describe a distant location or object without any sensory input from that location. It sounds like science fiction, but the CIA took it deadly seriously, spending millions of dollars on it over 2 decades. Declassified documents, released to the public through the Freedom of Information Act, reveal a stunning subplot to this psychic arms race. In their quest to find ways to enhance the abilities of their remote viewers, the scientists at the Stanford Research Institute, who were contracted by the CIA, began experimenting with various protocols. And one of the things they tested was cannabis. The results, detailed in internal memos and scientific reports, were extraordinary. They found that ordinary individuals with no prior psychic training could, under the influence of low, controlled doses of THC, suddenly describe distant, secret locations with an accuracy that defied statistical probability. One famous case involved a test subject who, after a small dose, was asked to focus on a set of geographic coordinates. He proceeded to draw a detailed map of a classified Soviet military installation, correctly identifying buildings, roads, and even the number of trucks parked in a motor pool. The CIA, of course, had satellite photos to verify the accuracy. They were stunned. The scientists involved theorized that cannabis worked by temporarily quieting the signal noise of the left brain, the logical, analytical, egoic part of the mind. This quieting allowed the fainter, more subtle signal of non-local awareness to be perceived. It's the exact same principle described by Tibetan Buddhists when they speak of Rigpa, a state of pure, untainted awareness that lies beyond conceptual thought. The CIA, in its ruthless pursuit of a military edge, had inadvertently stumbled upon the same mechanism of consciousness that mystics had been cultivating for millennia. A 2018 study from UCLA provided a modern neurological correlate for this. Researchers found that cannabis users performed significantly better on pattern recognition tests, spotting hidden connections and big-picture relationships that sober participants missed. It seems to promote a more holistic, associative style of thinking, literally rewiring the brain to see the forest, not just the trees. The shaman's warning in the scientist's lab. But here's where the story gets even more fascinating, and where it circles right back to the wisdom of the ancients. The CIA's biggest failures in the Stargate program came from overuse. When the test subjects consumed too much THC, their visions became chaotic, unreliable, and filled with what the researchers called imaginative overlays. Their accuracy plummeted. This is precisely what the Amazonian shamans have taught for centuries. They say that if you approach a sacred plant with greed or disrespect, or if you take more than is needed, the plant spirit becomes confused and angry. The visions turn dark and the connection is lost. The CIA scientists, using the cold language of their trade, documented the exact same dose-dependent phenomenon. The sweet spot for successful remote viewing was consistently found to be about 1/3 of a typical recreational dose, just enough to lift the veil, not tear it down completely. Project Stargate was officially terminated in 1995, with the official conclusion being that it was not a reliable source of intelligence. But the story doesn't end there. It serves as a chilling prelude to the world we live in now. The Cold War-era fear of psychic spying seems almost quaint compared to the reality of the 21st century digital surveillance state. Today, governments and corporations don't need remote viewers to know what you're thinking. They have something far more effective: your data. Your search history, your social media posts, your location data, your online purchases, all of it is collected, aggregated, and analyzed by algorithms to build a psychological profile of you that is more detailed than you can possibly imagine. This new mind war is not about seeing into a secret military base. It's about shaping the thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors of entire populations. It's about using technology not to expand consciousness, but to channel and control it. Social media algorithms are designed to feed us content that triggers outrage and fear, because those emotions drive engagement. Political campaigns use micro-targeting to feed different realities to different voters, fracturing any sense of a shared consensus. In this context, the wisdom gained from both the ancient shamans and the Stargate experiments becomes more relevant than ever. The practice of using a substance like cannabis with intention to quiet the external noise and listen to one's own inner signal becomes a radical act of cognitive sovereignty. It is an act of reclaiming your own attention from the corporations and political actors who want to monetize it. It is an act of stepping outside the algorithmically generated reality tunnel you are fed every day and asking, what am I not seeing? What deeper patterns and connections are being obscured by the constant static of digital life? The CIA wanted to use these states of consciousness as a weapon. The great irony is that today, cultivating these same states might be our best defense. A defense against the pervasive, invisible, and far more sophisticated mind war being waged for our attention every single day. Our journey so far has been one of revelation, uncovering the hidden history of cannabis as a tool for spiritual insight and expanded perception. But we must now address a crucial and often overlooked aspect of this work: the darkness, the fear, the bad trip. Anyone who has explored these realms or knows people who have is aware that the experience is not always one of light and bliss. Sometimes the plant can show you things that are terrifying. Shapes move in the shadows. Paranoia sets in. A voice whispers your deepest insecurities. Ancient cultures did not shy away from this reality. In fact, they saw it as a critical part of the process. They called it the plant testing you. Tibetan Buddhism has a particularly sophisticated understanding of this phenomenon. They call these frightening visions Dharmapala encounters, meetings with wrathful deities. But here's the key. They do not believe these are external demons attacking you. They believe they are fierce, energetic manifestations of your own mind. They are your own repressed fears, traumas, and shadow aspects of your psyche rising to the surface to be seen, acknowledged, and integrated. A 2023 study in the Journal of Psychopharmacology gave this ancient wisdom a modern statistical backing. Researchers found that among spiritual cannabis users, a staggering 68% reported experiencing at least one frightening or challenging vision. But the study's most important finding was what happened next. Those users who reacted with fear, who tried to fight or flee the vision, had overwhelmingly negative outcomes. But those who managed to face the vision with calm acceptance and curiosity, those who, in a sense, leaned in, reported profound breakthroughs and lasting therapeutic healing afterward. The key, the ancients and modern therapists agree, is not to run, not to fight, but to breathe and to ask the darkness, what are you here to teach me? The shaman's first aid kit, grounding techniques. Recognizing that these encounters were inevitable, shamanic cultures across the globe developed a first aid kit of simple, powerful techniques to ground the user's energy and provide a sense of safety when the inner landscape becomes turbulent. These are not superstitions. They are practical psycho-spiritual technologies that modern science is just beginning to understand. Salt. The Huical people of Mexico, famous for their work with the peyote cactus, traditionally keep a bowl of salt nearby during their ceremonies. They teach that simply touching the salt or placing a few grains on the tongue can dissolve negative visions. From a scientific perspective, this makes perfect sense. Salt is a powerful electrolyte. A sudden intake can influence your nervous system and blood pressure, literally changing your body's chemistry and short-circuiting a rising panic response. Bare feet on the earth. Another near-universal technique is grounding, or earthing. Hawaiian kahunas, Siberian shamans, and Native American elders all speak of the importance of placing one's bare feet on the living soil. A 2015 study demonstrated that this simple act can reduce anxiety and cortisol levels by up to 40% within minutes. It helps to discharge excess electrical energy from the body and provides a powerful sensory anchor to physical reality when the mind is spiraling. The sacred anchor. Many seasoned users keep a sacred anchor with them during their journeys, a meaningful physical object. It could be a smooth stone from a favorite river, a family photograph, a religious icon. The act of touching this object and focusing on its physical properties and emotional significance can serve as a lifeline, pulling the consciousness back from a state of dissociation to a place of centered presence. Prevention is the best medicine, the power of set and setting. More important than any rescue technique, however, is preparation. The Taoists, in their profound understanding of energy, or qi, warned that cannabis is an amplifier. It doesn't create the energy in the room or in your mind. It simply turns up the volume on whatever is already there. If you approach a session feeling stressed, fearful, or angry, the plant will magnify those states. If you approach it with reverence, calm, and a clear intention, it will magnify those. This is the core of the modern psychedelic therapy principle of set and setting. Set is your mindset, your intentions, your emotional state, your beliefs. Setting is your physical environment. The ancients understood this intuitively. Clean your space. Before a ceremony, a shaman would meticulously clean the physical space, often using sound, bells, chanting, or smoke, sage, Palo Santo for purification. A recent study showed that burning sage can reduce airborne bacteria by up to 94%, but its primary purpose is energetic, to signal to the psyche that this is a sacred, safe space. Set your intention. Never use a powerful plant teacher out of boredom or habit. Before you begin, sit quietly. Ask yourself, what am I seeking? What question do I need answered? What aspect of myself do I wish to heal? Formulate a clear, positive intention, such as, show me what serves my highest good, or help me to see my life with clarity and love. Modern psychology explains the power of this through expectancy theory. A landmark Yale study proved that subjects who were told to expect positive, spiritual experiences from a psychedelic substance had them 80% more often than a control group with no such expectation. Your beliefs literally shape your brain's reality filtering process. This ancient wisdom about navigating the shadow has never been more urgent. We are living in the midst of a global mental health crisis. Rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide are at all-time highs. Our primary response has been to medicalize this suffering, to treat it as a chemical imbalance to be corrected with daily medication. While these medications can be life-saving for many, they often work by numbing the pain, by blunting the sharp edges of suffering. They are designed to make the darkness go away. The shamanic model offers a radically different approach. It suggests that the darkness should not be banished, but engaged with. It posits that our anxiety and depression are not just symptoms of a broken brain, but are often meaningful signals from a wounded soul. They are the Dharmapalas, the wrathful deities, knocking on our door, asking to be seen. The current psychedelic renaissance, with research at institutions like Johns Hopkins and Imperial College London showing profound results for PTSD, depression, and end-of-life anxiety, is a testament to the power of this older model. But it also comes with a danger. As psychedelics become medicalized and corporatized, there is a risk that this crucial element of integration and shadow work will be lost. There is a push to create trip-free psychedelics that provide the neurological benefits without the challenging psychological experience. From a shamanic perspective, this is like wanting the wisdom of climbing a mountain without the effort of the climb. It is an attempt to extract the good parts while avoiding the necessary confrontation with the difficult parts of ourselves. The lesson from the ancients is clear. Fear is simply unprocessed wisdom. The plant is not showing you monsters. It is holding up a mirror to the parts of you that are still in need of your own light, your own compassion, your own courage. True healing is not the absence of darkness, but the integration of it. Our final journey into the ancient past takes us to a much more recent, yet equally profound, spiritual tradition. In the 20th century, on the island of Jamaica, a new spiritual movement was born from the crucible of colonialism and oppression. Rastafari. For Rastas, cannabis, which they call ganja or the holy herb, is not a drug. It is a sacrament, a central pillar of their faith. They believe it is the tree of life mentioned in the Bible, and its use is a sacred rite that helps them to connect with God, and to reject the corrupting influence of Babylon, their term for the oppressive, materialistic Western world. But the Rasta use of the herb involves a technology we have not yet encountered in our journey: the deliberate and systematic use of sound. When Rasta elders gather for a reasoning session, it is not a casual affair. It is a communal ceremony. As the chalice pipe is passed, it is accompanied by deep, rhythmic chanting and the pulsing beat of Nyabinghi drums. They are not just smoking. They are weaving the herb, the breath, and the vibration into a single, powerful tapestry of prayer. This might sound like a purely cultural or religious practice, but science is now revealing the sophisticated psychoacoustic technology at play. Researchers at the Berklee College of Music, a world-renowned institution for the study of music and sound, have made a remarkable discovery. They found that certain sound frequencies can directly alter how cannabis affects the brain. Their studies showed that listening to or chanting in a specific low-frequency range, between 110 and 115 Hz, makes the CB1 cannabinoid receptor sites in the brain up to 30% more receptive. And what is the dominant frequency range of Rasta chants and Nyabinghi drumming? You guessed it, 110 to 115 Hz. This is a mind-bending revelation. The Rasta elders, with no access to modern neuroscience, had discovered through pure intuition and spiritual practice a way to potentiate the spiritual effects of the herb using sound. They figured out how to use vibration to open the biological locks that the plant's chemical keys were designed to fit. The vibration matters as much as the herb itself. The Rasta understanding of sound as a sacred tool to create coherence and spiritual connection stands in stark contrast to how sound is often used in our modern Babylon. We live in a world of sonic pollution. The constant noise of traffic, the incessant pings of our devices, the algorithmically curated playlists designed for maximum consumption rather than deep listening. But it's more insidious than that. Sound is now being used as a tool of control and even as a weapon. Consider the use of long-range acoustic devices, LRADs, or sound cannons, used by police forces around the world for crowd control. These devices emit highly focused, painfully loud beams of sound to disperse protesters. It is the perfect inversion of the Rasta practice, using vibration not to create unity and open the mind, but to create pain, confusion, and submission. Consider also the psychological impact of the 24/7 news cycle, with its constant tone of urgency, fear, and conflict. The shouting heads, the dramatic music, the alarmist chyrons. It is a sonic environment designed to keep our nervous systems in a perpetual state of fight or flight, a state that is biochemically antithetical to spiritual openness. The Rastas created a sonic sanctuary. They understood that to hear the still, small voice of the divine, you first had to create the right resonant frequency. They teach that you should never listen to music with negative or violent lyrics during a sacred session, because the words and vibrations literally shape how the cannabinoids bind to your receptors. Positive, uplifting lyrics and rhythms promote serotonin and oxytocin release, while aggressive music can trigger cortisol, effectively blocking the spiritual effects. In our world, which is saturated with weaponized sound and algorithmically generated noise, the Rasta practice of conscious listening and intentional vibration becomes another radical act. It means curating your own sonic environment. It means choosing music and sounds that nourish your soul, not just distract your mind. It means understanding that what you listen to is as important as what you eat or what you think. Perhaps the greatest lesson from the Rastafari is that consciousness is a frequency. To change your mind, you may first need to change the channel. And sometimes, the most powerful way to do that is with a simple drum beat and a heartfelt prayer. We have traveled across 5,000 years of human history. We have listened to the wisdom of Vedic sages, Egyptian priests, Cold War psychics, and Jamaican prophets. We have seen how one humble plant has been viewed as a sacrament, a spiritual technology, a key to unlocking the hidden potential of the human mind. But now, as our journey comes to a close, we must confront the ultimate secret, the final revelation. And it is this: the magic was never in the plant. It was always in you. Cannabis, Soma, the green messenger, the holy herb, it doesn't create spiritual experiences. It acts as a mirror, reflecting the divine awareness that is already and has always been living within you. It is a tool that can temporarily scrape away the rust of ego, habit, and conditioning, allowing you to see the brilliant, shining consciousness that lies beneath. Modern science is once again confirming this most ancient of mystical truths. Your body has its own inner cannabis, the endocannabinoid system. It produces its own bliss molecule, anandamide, named from the Sanskrit word for joy. When you meditate, when you laugh, when you are in nature, when you hug a loved one, your body is releasing its own sacred medicine. The plant was never the destination. It was the signpost. It was the friend who introduced you to your true self. But once the introduction has been made, you don't need the friend to stand between you anymore. The great Taoist sage Lao Tzu wrote, "When the message is understood, the words are forgotten." The greatest gift of this plant is not the visions it can provide, but the proof it offers. Proof that you are more than your job title, your bank account, or your anxieties. Proof that reality is infinitely more mysterious, intelligent, and beautiful than our mundane senses normally allow us to perceive. Proof that your own consciousness is the most powerful psychedelic in the universe. The work, then, is not to keep going back to the plant, but to learn how to cultivate these states of awareness in your sober, everyday life, to see the sacred in the mundane, to feel the connection not just in a ceremony, but in the checkout line at the grocery store, to carry the plant's wisdom in your bones, not just in your bloodstream. This is the final lesson. The war on consciousness is real, but it is fought on the battlefield of your own attention. The forces of Babylon, of the modern world, want you to remain distracted, anxious, and asleep. They want you to believe that you are small and powerless, and that you need to consume something external to feel whole. The secret of the ancients is the exact opposite. You were never broken. You have always been whole. The door that cannabis can sometimes open is a door that never truly closes. You can walk through it at any time with nothing more than your breath, your intention, and the unshakable knowing that the cosmos is not out there. It is in here. Look at the world around you. Look at the people you love. Look at your own hands. This is the great work. This is the ceremony. The teacher has shown you what is possible. Now it is your turn to live it.